Okay, so this is now clip number 4, an essay topic selection. Um, what can you do for chapter 4? This is clip 4, chapter 4. Alright, well, entrepreneurship has lots of interesting topics that can be explored. One is international entrepreneurship. So this would pertain to a couple things. One is immigrants. You have new immigrants come to Canada. They face a lot of problems starting a new business. Okay, it could be lack of access to social networks, could be lack of access to financial networks, ability to get loans. It could be a whole bunch of different problems they have. So how can we rectify, remedy these problems? Okay, so that's one option. Another option is to look up in textbooks on international entrepreneurship. Interesting stuff there. For instance, one interesting case was about the whole issue of should the NHL expand hockey to Asia. Right, so now you sort of get kind of the, you have an international business transaction, right? Because now you have expansion, basically a licensing agreement. So it creates income streams for the the NHL in America, and you also have international expansion opportunities. Is it a good opportunity to expand there, or is it a bad opportunity to expand there? And so you can look into that. That could be an interesting topic as well. Chapter 5 is about international business. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Again, this is actually very controversial. Let me show you a book that might stimulate your creativity here. It's written by, here it is. I see I zoomed it in so much. Yeah. It's written by this, that's his name down there. It's hard to pronounce. Chossudovsky. Michel Chossudovsky. He's actually at the University of Ottawa, professor of economics. This is a great book, and you can get so many topics on this because it's about globalization. All right, anything to do with globalization. And so he, let me just read you a few of the things, like quickly, very quickly, from his table of contents. I just flipped through here, and they're all completely relevant to the topics we cover. Like here in chapter 5, think about the global cheap labor economy, world unemployment, declining wages, relocation of industry, bang on, all the stuff we talked about, right? Or will talk about, let's see. A lot on the IMF and World Bank and all these austerity programs that they put on some of these countries, and it's almost like a version of sort of like global dictatorship is sort of almost what he's saying. I don't think he's quite that brazen in his selection of words, but that's basically what he's describing. They're sort of coming into countries and telling them what to do. What are chapter 21 was kind of interesting. Oh yeah, like here, the 1987 Wall Street crash. Interesting. Chapter 21 sounds like a fascinating kickoff to an essay topic called economic warfare. Manipulation of free markets, the demise of central banks, creditors and speculators. Deregulation of capital movements. Well, that's that balance of payment stuff. Capital movements, capital account. So deregulation, implications of that. Concentration of wealth. Like here on page 304, he talks about the illusory, meaning fake, independence of central banks. So take on that thesis. Are central banks really that independent? Who's pulling their strings? I mean, there's just so many, interesting stuff. Let's see. What else? While I'm on this, Dismantling of the welfare state. Well, welfare state, government transfers, that's fiscal policy. That's chapter 2 in your textbook. Right? Completely legitimate. Talk about it. Financial deregulation at a global level, again. Completely irrelevant, because that's an international movement of money. They're basically talking like there's those huge foreign exchange markets and stuff like that. What else? They got a lot of stuff here on the illegal drug economy. There you go again. And all these, you're here in chapter 10, all these IMF, what they're called indirect rules. Right? Look at this thing here on page 154. The IMF supports caste exploitation. Poverty supports exports to the rich countries. All this, talks about, here on page 151, eliminating the poor through starvation deaths. This is not, low-key stuff. This is highly controversial. It involves our IMF, our World Bank, globalization, central banks, power, control. Great stuff. So this is and this guy is a professor in actually University of Ottawa. He also has a web page actually called globalresearch.ca. That's www.globalresearch.ca. Interesting stuff. Very controversial, very different from what your textbook tells you. That's for sure. Okay, so that's chapter 5. Chapter 11, yes, and talks about production, manufacturing of stuff. This could be a very interesting if you want to look into all this lean, mean, just-in-time inventory production, and ask yourself questions about what could go wrong with this, like strikes or international border problems. Right, can't get stuff across the border, so the whole just-in-time system kind of breaks down. So that's something you can look at too. How can we fix it? How can we make it leaner, meaner? And finally, I'm going to finish up this clip 4, and I'll come back and do clip 5 in a second. Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is about quality management. And one of the things it talks about is called total quality management. Okay, TQM. And my brother actually always likes to make fun of me because I went to business school. He went off and got a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science. And about this one episode clip from Futurama about how business schools are, they're only supposed to be there for people of, monkeys of average intelligence is what the clip says. My brother sent that to me and made fun of me because I have 2 degrees in business. But what I think the Futurama clip was trying to say, and is a legitimate criticism I think of business in general, is that they get into all of these fads, sort of the buzzwords. Right, like Lindsay Naegle on The Simpsons. Remember, we got to be proactive and stuff like this. And there is a tendency of that. So you could say, is total quality management a legitimate business philosophy that should be used, or is it just one of these multiple fads that seem to come along from time to time? Perfectly fair thesis, I think. Right. Anyway, so that covers that. Can I squeeze in chapter 13? Yeah, let me squeeze in 13. Before my time runs out. Chapter 13 is on information systems. So this is basically using computer systems for communication purposes. Again, you could use this from you can look at this from an international perspective. Like, how do you run a business with workers in 7 different countries? How do you communicate? How do you improve communications? How do you protect your systems from hackers stealing all your database information, right? If you're conducting online business transactions and so on. Okay, so I'm going to come back. My last clip will be on 18, 19, 20, and Appendix A.